is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Oh, to those around me. Yeah. Show me who you are, the great and eternal one. Show me who you are, the worthy one to build our life upon. Show me who you are, oh, our firm foundation. Show us who you are, the all-powerful, mighty God. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you, oh Lord, and I will not be shaken, and I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you, oh Lord, and I will not be shaken. I will build, and I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you, oh Lord, and I will not be shaken. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And holy, there's no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Oh, how we need you, God. Oh, how we need you, God. We look to you. Where does our help come from? Our help comes from the Lord. Oh, and only Lord. God, I look to you. I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision see things like you do. And God, I look to you. You where my help comes from. Give me wisdom, 'cause you know just what to do, yeah. You always know what to do. You always know. God, we love. Oh God, I look to you. I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like you do. And God, I look to you. You where my help comes from. Give me wisdom, 'cause you know just what to do, yeah. I will love you, Lord, my strength. I will love you, Lord, my shield. I will love you, Lord, my rock. Forever all my days I will love you, God. I will love you. I will love you, Lord, my strength. I will love you, Lord, my shield. I will love you, Lord, my rock. Forever all my days I will love you, God. I will love you. Yes, I will love you, Lord, my strength. I will love you, Lord, my shield. I will love you, Lord, my rock. Forever all my days I will love you, God. Oh, hallelujah, hallelujah, our God reigns. Hallelujah, our God reigns. Hallelujah, our God reigns. Forever all my days. Hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah. Hallelujah, our God reigns. Hallelujah, our God reigns. Hallelujah, our God reigns. Forever all my days. Hallelujah. I will love you. I will love you, Lord, my strength. I will love you, Lord, my shield. I will love you, Lord, my rock. Forever all my days I will love you, God. Yes, I will love you, Lord, my strength. I will love you, Lord, my shield. I will love you, Lord, my rock. Forever all my days I will love you, God. Forever all my days I will love you, God. Forever all my days I will love you, God. Oh, I will love great and mighty Savior. Oh, how we love you. Thank you that you never leave us alone. Oh, how we love you. Oh, how we love you. Nothing takes you by surprise. Oh, nothing does. Oh, 'cause we can trust in you because of that. You know just what to do in everything. We've come to join the song sung long before our time lies, to raise our voice along heaven and earth alike. We've seen your faithful hand, your mercy without end, the King who bled and died, a God who sacrificed, be enthroned upon the praises of 1,000 generations. You are worthy, Lord of all. Unto you, the slain and risen King, we lift a voice with heaven, singing worthy, Lord of all. All through this life we lead, and all through eternity, our endless praise we cry. Jesus be glorified. All through this life, all through this life we lead, and all through eternity, our endless praise we cry. Jesus be glorified. Jesus be glorified. Jesus be glorified. Oh, be enthroned upon the praises of 1,000 generations. You are worthy, Lord of all. Unto you, the slain and risen King, we lift our voice with heaven, singing worthy, Lord of all. Be enthroned upon the praises of 1,000 generations. You are worthy, Lord of all. Unto you, the slain and risen King, we lift our voice with heaven, singing worthy, Lord of all. Highest praises, 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 Lord of all. Be enthroned upon the praises of 1,000 generations. You are worthy, Lord of all. And unto you, the slain and risen King, we lift our voice with heaven, singing, worthy, Lord of all. Be enthroned upon the praises of 1,000 generations. You are worthy, Lord of all. Unto you, the slain and risen King, we lift our voice with heaven, singing, worthy, Lord of all. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth, yes, all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth, yes, all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise, we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise, we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord. Oh, great pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you only. To you only. To you only. Oh, great are you, Lord. Yes, great are you, Lord. All the earth. Yes, all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth. Yes, all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth. Yes, all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord.
Oh, wonderful presence, Lord. What do you have in your heart? You have a prayer in your heart. You have a worship expression in your heart. Voice it out. Say it. Say it. Jesus. From all the nations, we worship you, Lord. We worship you. You are the center, you are the reason, you are the word, you are everything. Everything has always been, it is, will always be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name. In the sweet name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Hallelujah. Amen. 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 Thank you, Chris. We have a wonderful morning ahead. We just need a few minutes to set a few things up here, and while I'm distracting you guys, no, but I'm talking to you guys, I have our friends helping with the setup here. During the week, these past days, we have been pondering about the picture of the symbol of these two chairs, this small beginning that led us to who we are as a university, how the Lord has led us to this place. So during this morning, we have the joy of having Lauren and Darlene with us, and we have a time of dialogue, a panel of discussion with them with a few questions, where we'll be able to draw some of these important aspects of our history, how the Lord led us to this day of today, and perhaps seeking together as well what He has in store for us in the future. When you look to the future, what's there? What the Lord has in store there waiting for us? And how figured it out we have it so far? Right? What do we know so far? And some of the ways that in faithful the Lord will continue daily to guide us there, to lead us there. So we will have Joe Portali joining us for this time too. So be able to draw from these wonderful people. And there will be a moment that some of you guys will have the chance, the opportunity to ask a few questions too. So we'll try to make this as family as possible. So I'd like to invite Lauren and Dar to come here to the front. And also Joe to come as well. And we are going to try to have a conversation with very little protocol from a Western point of view, but keeping a living, a live conversation between us. When we were praying for this moment together, we only felt that the Lord was leading us to this place of dialogue where we could hear from each other, from one another together. Thank you, Nathaniel. So it's our great joy to be able to do this together. You may notice that we have Howard's chair also here. So we are joining the conversation. Perhaps in the spirit we are continuing a conversation that it was started between Lauren and Howard on that very day, and we are going to bring.
And Darlene brought the water.
And Darlene brought the water. Yeah.
There wouldn't be a university without Darlene.
Did you guys have a little table, or it was just?
We didn't have a table.
We didn't have a table.
Not one.
So this is poetic.
This is building 3 right here.
This is
at the very end.
Let's move the table away.
They don't want to have fun.
You guys are way ahead of us. That was the second year.
And you forgot the cockroaches.
Right.
And the rats. We had big rats.
And the centipedes, right?
We didn't bother to look for those to bring to the panel as well.
Okay,
But
okay.
I'm
And all
pretty sure if we
showers
walk-
were outside with hoses. So we all put our swim trunks on and went out and got showers. I'm serious. We didn't have any running water inside.
Before finding this place here, you guys were already in the island. Where was that? It was...
Prior,
Yeah.
we were given a leasehold land, 68 acres.
Okay.
So we had tents up there.
Okay.
And we had a tomato shed, just plastic over. That was our meeting rooms.
Right.
And then we had to have 32 different places we rented.
Uh-huh.
And as a family, we moved, in those 3 years, we moved 18 times total.
Wow.
So we were like children of Israel, waiting for this land.
Uh-huh.
So when this land came, you guys are getting to the nice part.
But we're still in tents.
We slept, we
just
slept
don't
on the
advance.
floor here, but that was all right.
And it's good for us to see that in some ways, although we have come a long way, we are still camping.
Yes.
You know, we are still camping in many different ways. We're still finding how it's going to look in the future, how it's going to be, how the Lord will bring us to a place where, well, it's done. It's now ready. And I feel that there is this sense of readiness in many of us, in our hearts, that the Lord is bringing us to sort of an edge of a moment that we are jumping into another level of accomplishment and readiness. And it's good to have this sense that in some ways we're still pioneering, we're still camping, we're still carrying that pioneering spirit. But I would like to ask you with a question that maybe any of you could take the time to answer. We talk a lot about that this is God's idea. The University of the Nation is God's idea.
Can I first find out who these people are?
Absolutely.
How many are from Asia? Stand up so I can see you. All right. All right. Now, how many are from Africa? All right. I wouldn't have guessed. And Europe. And Middle East. Well, and Latin America. All right, North America. Okay, and Pacific Islands as well as Australia, and that New Zealand, of course, is islands. Anyone from Antarctic? No, I guess not. All right. I just wanted to get an overview. Thank you.
He didn't know if he'd be comfortable with the group unless it was international.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I was going to
But
leave.
got to be sure it's truly a YWAM family.
Yesterday, where we were chatting, I just had this impression. You know, when we think on a kingdom, like let us think a Nordic kingdom, where they all look like Scandinavian,
Yes.
or they all look alike, or they all look Latin American, or they all look Middle Eastern, you know. And when we think on a kingdom, usually it comes this idea of uniformity. Oh, they have some. But when we think on the kingdom of God, wow, right? Right, so this is a fantastic picture, a wonderful picture.
Why,
and we
why?
often think that this is God's idea.
That's right.
But why you think that the Lord would be interested in giving us a university?
A university in Youth with the Mission.
Yes. Why would he be interested in giving us, this particular bunch of people, a university?
Well, I was the one that met this word with great faith. Lauren began to share with me what he felt like God was saying, that God wanted us to have a university, and I'll let him share about how that word came. And I responded, "You've got to be out of your mind." We never even encourage anybody to do a university. We're always saying, come be Green Berets. Come be the people that take on the hard places. How could God be calling us to do a university? Da-da-da-da. Your turn.
There's a Mr., I think his name's Hillman, who just wrote about this. And I was reading it. He starts with the story that Lauren Cunningham and Bill Bright at the same time received the same word from the Lord about this 7. For me, it was, God said, I want to show you 7 classrooms how to teach or disciple a nation. And that's up in the, the cabin. And so he said in his writing, but they didn't apply it. And they should have gone to the leaders of business and the leaders of and so on. He didn't understand our call. Our call was to go to youth. And that's what both Campus Crusade and YWAM does.
And even Lauren never thought of it before, but Francis Schaeffer, he too was called to youth.
That's
and he
right.
was the third confirmation on that.
Yeah, that's the one Darlene saw on, was it television or radio?
Yeah, television.
Yeah, I just read something on radio, and I thought, no, that's not right. You were looking. Anyway, we're trying to get a lot of these facts right because there's so many stories. But we got this word of the Lord, it was, Bill had it, I had it, but others, Francis Schaeffer then, and then we heard others. And we even heard that Plato had a concept similar. He actually plagiarized us. And and even Abraham Kuyper, he plagiarized part of us 100 years before. But anyway, these are things that God has put into place. And we're finding it out in the Sphereview Bible, the percentages in the Bible that have to do with religion or education and so on. Government's way down here, And so when you look at what God is saying to us, what he was saying then was, if we're going to do something about this word, you have to have the next one, and that's a university. Now, I didn't want to. I've gone to 6 different tertiary schools, and I have a pocket full of more degrees than I have temperature. And so no, this is not right. This is not going to happen. But we had K through 12, and the way that came was in the 13 other educators that came here, and that was one of my areas of study. And they showed up over in Hilo. That's before we came here. And they were from different parts of the world, all YWAMers and all educators. One of them had been the dean of education for a university. And one was a professor in Wellington, New Zealand, another professor in university in London, and so on. These were educators, lots of them. One a professor there in USC on education. And they all showed up. They're all YWAMers. And everybody's on outreach except Darlene and I and a skeleton crew trying to keep the lights on. And here they were. And I said, Lord, what's this about? He said, I want you to have 3 days fasting and prayer. So that was all a part of this. The other part, and this is the important part about Dr. Momstead. So we had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the Lord spoke to us about modular education. Well, that was right away. They said, that's not an educational term, that's architectural. I said, I know that, but God's saying modular, and let's ask him. So we got unity. And so when I flew out the next day, I had to speak in Illinois at a leadership conference. I used the illustration that when you listen to God, he's going to tell you things outside of your box. And that's where creative things come from. They don't come from doing everything like, you know, a bureaucrat would do, just the same thing every day. But it's something that leadership has to have, and that is creating new things in new ways or whatever. And so I use that as an illustration. In the break time, walking down the aisle, a man stepped in the aisle in front of me and said, I wanted to just thank you for using the illustration of modular education. He said, God has shown me the same thing. I said, he has? He said, yes, I've written 3 books on it. This was Dr. Howard Momstead. That was my first meeting. Notice, around modular education, which God said to us prior. Now, when we met in this last room down at the end of this hall here, and he came in, what a surprise. And we, you know, somebody said, Dr. Howard Momstead's here. I said, the Dr. Momstead? You see, after he died, he was named as the most important scientist in all of American history in applied chemistry. And if you take any device, you know, check your blood or do this, that, or the other, it all is possible because of what he did prior. And so here he is, out here. He just shows up. He didn't tell anybody he's coming. And I said, well, bring him here, you know, down to our room. We had no furniture, we didn't have a floor, we had a subfloor. And that's where we also slept. And so he's going to have to see it as it was. And, you know, and be here long enough to look out and see everybody showering in the morning and seeing us wash our dishes we had a big bathtub. And anyway, we didn't get sick. Anyway.
Everybody carried their own dishes for their own germs.
Yeah. So I said, Howard, I have to tell you, God's told us to start a university. He said, yes, I know. That's why I'm here. I said, you are? He said, yes, he told me that. I said, when? This is October. He said, last April. Now, April, we had the eldership here that all agreed we were to start a university. That was done in February. We got unity on it by March, and then God gave us King's Mansion. Boom! As soon as we said yes, He gave us King's Mansion. But He didn't give us this. And land is often linked with ministries and obedience into ministries and agreeing with God. And so many people have been praying for land, and they're still not doing what God told them to do. So God says, you don't need land, not until you obey me. And so that's what He was waiting on us. And that happened at Turku, Finland, when our leaders, international leaders, met together and got the word of the Lord. And the last one to give his guidance was Jim Dawson. And the door flew open, said, Lauren, there's a phone call for you at the phone booth. That was about, 50, 100 feet away from the building, out there, one of these little deals you put your head under. And here it was, a payphone. I put my head under there. Yes, it was a message from the judge, and the judge was saying, you should have gotten this land instead of this other guy. And I said, yeah, I know that. And he said, you still want it? Yes, of course. How much? $1.8 million. It's yours. Just like that. Oh, wait, I got to ask you how much for a deposit. I hadn't expected that one. I said $30,000 for a $1.8 million plot. Anyway, he said, you can move in. And that's the way it is. And the man that laughed at me when I first went in and asked, I wanted to buy this was over in Honolulu. He was the executor appointed by the judge. And I said, I came in, put my card down, and I'd just gone and printed it so I looked really official. And I said, I want to buy that land over there in Kona. I had never seen this place. He said, okay, how much? I said, $1.8 million. He laughed at me. He said, we're asking $8 million and you're wanting 1.8. I laughed too because I didn't have any money. And so I had to go again the next year. Same thing happened. And then the third was the judge, and that's a big story. Yes. But in the process, if you understand the beginnings, it gets so strong that you know you'd be disobedient if you didn't do it. And so in August, right at the end of August, is when we got it. Then we flew back to Dallas we were with the Jim and Joy Dawson. What?
Can we wait on that part of the story and let
Okay.
Joe and I answer this other part?
All right, but let me just tie it up here with him. I'll forget it.
No, you won't.
Yeah,
You won't.
yeah.
You won't.
Oh, yeah. All right.
No, stop.
Can you hold those thoughts in your mind right at the front?
If we don't,
All right, go
if
for
we
it.
don't, we will not get to talk.
Yes, yes, da.
So, Joe, I'll take your role. Why do you think God gave Youth with a Mission a university?
That's a loaded question. Yeah, go. You go.
Okay, Darlene, why do you think God gave us a university? Well, what I think is as you think about the 4 legacy words, so the first word of the wave came so clearly. Young people from everywhere, going everywhere. Doing those new things that need to be done to see that the gospel is understood. So that's the starting word God gives us. And then we begin, and then that second word, and right all in that same time, comes the Christian Magna Carta. And the Christian Magna Carta, in order to fulfill that and fulfill that first vision of the waves, we needed a university. And once again, God gave a concept for a university that was new, that hadn't been done before, that was controversial. When I was about to be married to Lauren, I had an aunt that worked in a Bible school. And she came to me, and she was a dean in the Bible school, your Bible school.
Yes, we knew
And
her.
she said to me, honey, I need to ask you a question about Lauren. Do you think he's always going to be controversial? I said, yeah, I think it's going to be like that. And he's lived up to it. But my point is that doing the new, the apostolic move, for young people, you all understand how new that was to do missions that way. Now God once again is calling us within that context of the apostolic to establish an apostolic learning community. And he's calling it to be international. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the strength of what God had made the mission, I think that's why he helped us begin a university.
But let me pitch into that.
Don't forget, Joe.
With any of you guys. Like we all see that there was a wave of new things,
Yes.
youth and missions and all. But we were never educators with a mission,
Yeah, that's right.
right? Actually, the group that joined YWAM in the beginning were very particular, right?
Yeah.
So they all came. We have some people here who can give more detail to this particular that I mean. But why us?
Well, I think
And you were educated.
Just for you guys to be aware as well, this is being live streamed, okay? So it's
So behave yourself, Darlene.
just saying.
I get it, Andre.
Okay.
That's going to be hard.
All right.
well, it was youth with a mission. It's young people. So that was the wave. It is a movement raising up young people. And in the context of that, we're going out doing what we can do. But then I think God is seeing that he's wanting to better equip us. I remember Lauren sharing with us way back about the times going into the Caribbean back in the mid-'60s. and people were getting saved, and every year hundreds of people would get saved. Then we go back the next year, the same hundreds of people get saved over again. And there was something Lauren was saying is missing. And so that, to me, that was a part of the context, too, of what God was doing in calling us to the School of Evangelism, the first training program, so we could be better equipped to do what God called us to do. And so, to me, it's a context of youth being called, but then God saying, okay, now I'm going to help prepare you so you can be effective in what you're doing. And so, in the beginnings of that first school, which was a 14-month program, kind of the seed of university, we were getting a whole lot of training in evangelism and being able to relate to this generation that we were in, and also language.
Yes.
We all had to choose a language to learn.
Yes.
Because in missions, we needed to learn the language of the people we were called to. And so it was bringing in that whole dynamic, which is a part of university today.
Yeah. So the first.
Oh, and yeah,
No,
amen.
go ahead.
The character and nature of God. As we were trying to witness to European young people, and with existentialism, humanism, all these other isms, a part of the challenge was because they had no concept of who God is. And I can remember sitting on the streets of Paris talking to hippie kids, and they had no idea who God was. And when I'd ask them their idea, I'd say, I couldn't believe in a God like that either. And so then we would begin to share who God is, the character and nature of God, and kids would respond. It became life-changing for us, but it was also a message we could share with others, and it became life-changing to them because God is love. All the concepts of the humanists that they blame God for are total misunderstandings if you don't know who God is. And so, to me, that was life-giving. So much in that first school was life-giving. The voice of the Lord, intercession, spiritual warfare, changed our lives and how we did ministry. But then the message was very important, and how we would share who God is, that was life-changing for us and became life-changing to other people.
And I would say in those schools and at that time, God gave to Lauren such wisdom on who to bring in to speak. And then his major role for us, he did speaking too, but the major role that Lauren did during that time was he facilitated our wisdom and our understanding. Sometimes he would bring in people that were controversial, the two that didn't believe exactly the same. And I can remember arguments coming out about the students. Joel, remember this too. But Lauren, what do you think? What do you think? And he said, that's not what I think, it's what you work out. What do you think if God says this about himself? What do you think the action would be?
So we spent hours and hours and hours after class talking.
Into the night.
Yes, working things through, trying to come to understanding. But one thing that Lauren did was on Monday morning, he would prepare us for the next speaker. And he said, last week you heard such and such.
Yes.
This week you may hear something that sounds different. But it isn't if you hear the heart. And he would challenge us to get to the heart. One of the things he shared, I think later than that, was when somebody's teaching, their teaching's like a river. And in the middle of the river, it's deep. And that's where you want to swim. But every river has muddy banks. Stay away from the muddy banks. Don't get into arguments about the peripheral things, but stay in the midst of the river. And he would challenge us on that. You're getting near the muddy banks. Stay in the depth of the river and hear the heart of God. And people from different theological persuasions had the same heart. And so a lot of times it's just vocabulary. So don't get hung up on vocabulary, but hear the heart.
Yeah. We have a picture of the early days in the 69 school, and there is a progression I see. It started for a 14 months program, or it was shorter than that, and then now we do 3 months program. So there is a certain progression in all that. So it seems to me that not everything was sorted out from the beginning. Is that how it was, or did you had a plan? You know, oh, that's how it's gonna be.
Let me give you some timelines that you can write down, okay? Dates. But there's something important about what we're doing in terms of longevity. I'm just been editing a book that we're trying to get out here on preparing leadership for the big wave that's coming. And so last night I was into this. So what I remember, I've forgotten the name of the rabbi, but he said, I'm always asked how it is with thousands of years of Jewish people, and they don't have a land for thousands of years, and yet they are still together. He says it's because we tell the story, our story, mostly the Exodus story, every Friday night, and we then do that once a year corporately. And remember, you're going to hear me tell stories often, and in the past I wanted to quit and move on to new stories, but the Lord said, no, you got to get the stories in, because every time someone new comes, they need to hear the story. Now, the big story is why did we do it? Because God said it. Now, if God said it, how do we know it was God? And that's where I move into, in my mind, I follow these dates. So we began really with the first outreach at Easter time in 1960. Took us, what was it, 107 people on a charter flight to Hawaii. I was trying to go into Mexico. That's where I'd been when I was 17 with 11 other guys. We were all teenagers, para predicar el evangelio. And so I wanted to do that only with the larger group to launch YWAM. And it wouldn't come together. But suddenly the Hawaii thing came together, so we were on four islands evangelizing. And for me, that was the starting time. And then I began to work, and I went around the world and got places, and we began to open up places in Asia, Africa, Latin America, all in the first 18 months of YWAM. We had people in all of those places. So coming ahead, in that time, we had a leper colony, we had teaching. I even taught school out in Nigeria at that time. We had evangelism. We started the first churches, 10 churches in the first 18 months, and I was involved in at least 7 of those churches. So we were doing and teaching others to come alongside of us short term. But it was evangelism that took the first part in the 60s. And then when the Lord said, now start the school, and that was Darlene and me separate, we first got the word of the Lord, and then he confirmed it by 2 mighty men of God, like Duncan Campbell and
No, not that first word Duncan Campbell didn't. It's Willard Cantillon.
Yeah, Willard Cantillon and Duncan Campbell, both. And I'll explain to you later. But
Keep silent.
yeah. No.
I'll explain to you at home.
Yeah.
There's a scripture like
Yeah,
that.
that's right. No, I was speaking in Rockford, Illinois with
That was a
with.
competition for starting more
Yeah.
in Switzerland.
That's what I was saying.
Okay.
So that was to start the school in Switzerland. Okay? Now, you move ahead, because at that time we started at 8 months. The budget was $850, and that cover your room, board, and travel, including the Middle East and your outreach and your language study in 8 months. Well, no language study that time. Then we added language study, so we raised the budget to $1,000 per person for 14 months. And that included all those things, plus learning at some of the best language schools in Europe. But so we had to trust the Lord. That was part of leadership. And then when the word of the Lord came to us in Hilo, did you hear me say these were all educators, some into their 60s?
Yeah.
God had already started bringing educators in. We weren't all youth. When he said start a ship, we didn't let the king's kids drive the ship.
This is such a
You
good
know,
point.
so God was bringing them in. We were failing to recognize them. And as we started to see, oh, these are educators. So we, that year, 1975, that's when we got it in February. And 1975, we started our first schools. In April, we sent a team over for April 1st for the first preschool up at Kainaliu. We just rented a house. And then by October, we started K through 9. My sister and brother-in-law were the ones that helped us do that. My sister took the curriculum and got the people. My brother-in-law, he was a doctor and commander in the U.S. Navy, and then doctor, and he was assistant to the head of education for the largest school district in the world, which was Los Angeles. And so they took a year off and came and helped us get started. And so they got us a place up here, former school, where we started International Christian Schools.
Lauren,
That was 1975. 76, we now had all the way through high school.
So can I tap you into
Yeah.
that? So 74, there was this prayer time in Hilo.
What's that?
In 74, there was this prayer time in Hilo, when the Lord brought the word
No.
on the university.
No,
No?
no. 1975, that we were to have modular education
75,
in Hilo.
in Hilo.
Yeah.
Okay. And after that is, because I see a progression here of a word of the Lord, obedience, confirmation. A word of the Lord, obedience, confirmation. So, Willard Cantillon, word of the Lord, obedience, confirmation.
I would change it a little bit.
Yeah, confirmation,
The word
obedience.
of the Lord, agreement,
Uh-huh.
and then
Yes,
confirmation.
yes.
And then we could actually do it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
agreement.
Agreement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
that's
couldn't
that's
do
a
it.
good that's
Yeah.
a good word. So when after the prayer time in Hilo and the Lord brought that word, the Lord wants to give us a university. Did you see a
That wasn't then. That was 77.
77
Yeah, I'm
only?
going the timeline.
Okay.
75, we started grammar school, high school, and we did a little pyramid and so on, showing how, upside down pyramid, how we would add courses.
But when the Lord spoke that in Hilo, were you able to see a connection with the very first word on you are going to have a school? Did you see a connection with that? Is this a progression? Is this an expansion? Is this another season? How back then, how did you saw the word that you received? Was this something completely new? What was your...
There was no, it was simply revelation. We didn't move up to it. It was just revelation. We were to have preschool through high school. And when they said high school, and I thought, oh my, I hope he's not going to ask us to do the next level, tertiary. But so that was 1975, and that's when I first met Howard. Yes. Okay, in '76 we were able to complete it all the way through the university. Now we had a school property up on Mamaloa Highway, and then lease we only paid $40 a year, I think it was something. And so then in 77 in February, that's when the Lord said, I want you to have a university. And this was within our eldership here. And when we got agreement, we all sought the Lord for a period of time. And then at that time, we were given kings, just like that. And so, of course, that wouldn't be big enough for the university. We knew we were still doing here. We had that word in 1973 that we were to buy this land. Never saw the land. In fact, we bought it, I think, before I have to think about that one. But anyway, so 73, then 75, he gives us this. Then in 76, we had finished what he told us to do in 75, all the way through the high school. So in 77, in February, as we sought the Lord, and were you here at that time? You're still in Africa, I think. You were here by then. And so at that time when God said, start a university, I'd said, Lord, can we at least use the word college or institute or some other word? Because that word university has too much baggage. He said, no, I want to redeem the word. It's unity with diversity. And the diversity, I came to understand, somewhere along that line, was the seven spheres. So that was going to be the diversity. Now, to introduce this into YWAM, I had to be very gentle. I couldn't really give what I felt in my heart. But God had so confirmed it with Leonard Ravenhill in the prayer meeting. That was in 77, in August. And that's when he kept praying, Lord, you want this spiritual university out here in Kona. And
Lauren, let me just interrupt. Just so I think many of you would know who Leonard Ravenhill is if you've read his book, Why Revival Tarries. This was a man that was a remarkable prophetic leader, revivalist, and was known for that. So this was a revivalist giving Lauren the confirmation that we were to have a university, which is very significant.
So we moved in. Now,
Yes.
wouldn't you expect it that God would surely have a plumber somewhere in those that came? Well, Leo had a company, plumbing company, for years, and he was in his 50s. He showed up with his boys, and none of our plumbing worked in all these 4 buildings. None of them. It's a mess. And so they got that working quickly for us, that part of it, but not the showers. But you just do one thing at a time. But we were so happy because we were in the land. You have to see it. We'd been moving around. Konakai Apartments over there just by KTA, you know. We took most of those places after a while. And we worked our classrooms moved down to the industrial area. I drive by that all the time, across the street from Honda, you know, on the other side. There's
They're not local people.
yeah, well, if you go down, this is Kuakini. Just drive down Kuakini toward the old airport, and just keep going on it, and it'll turn. And off to the right, you'll see walkways outside of second floor buildings. Okay, and one of them is a half higher. It's 2.5 stories. And Bruce Thompson's little boy, he's about 2 or 3. And he was up there, and he, you know, like a little child, he pushed against it, and it was rotten, and he fell off on his head. 2.5 stories high. And of course, his husband, his father's a doctor, and mother a nurse. They swept him up, and Frank Bullock jumped in the little VW bug, and they headed out as fast as they could to the hospital. So we're all praying. Here's all of our staff was there at the time. Saw it. Were you there? No, not that. But anyway, they were heading to the hospital, and we're praying like mad. Somebody said looked like his skull was even caved in. And I stood up there and I said, God, this is no place for children. Now you get us into that land. Now I'm starting to demand, you know, and that was really tough. They got to the hospital. They looked him over and they said, he's fine. Take him home. Nothing was wrong with him. So we saw miracles. Now those are confirmations too. You're still in the will of God, no problem. And so that's where. And Corey Ten Boom was one of our teachers, and we had an LTS up there, leadership school, his seminar, and Lord, why are you out here all alone in this island? Why are you here? You know, there's nothing around at that time. We didn't even, when we moved to Kona in 75, in 75, July 1st. That's the first day I was 40 years old. I was 40 the night before. And that's when we arrived here. And there was no grocery store down here. KTA wasn't open yet. And we had to go to Kainalui to get groceries. Okay? It was really cow town. 200 cows right here. And so when we started moving in and things started changing, God said to us in an all-night prayer meeting, this was still in 75, I'm going to put you in the center because this place is going to grow to the right and the left, and I want you in the center of Kona. And so that's why he put us here. So when the Howard came after we'd gotten the word from, this is still 77, he came in October, mid-October, around the 16th, and came to our door and came in. And when I said yes, we're to start when I said to him we're to start a university, he said yes, I know that. I said, how do you know it? Well, he said in April I got these requests, would I consider being president of 4 different universities, and all at the same time. And you guys don't know what God was given to us. There'd be no university without Howard. And so, and there wouldn't be one without Darlene either. She's co-founder as well. She put the community thing together. I just gave the vision. And if it had been only me, it'd been a lot of blood on the ground and nothing ever happened. That's why Darlene...
You know what I tell him? It's like the Proverbs, where they talk about the man sitting in the gate and being honored as the people are coming and going. And the woman is up early in the morning, racing around, selling the property, getting the fabrics together, taking care of everything. It was sort of like that.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't understand. There in the gate, there's a lot of flies. You're always flicking flies. It's not easy. It's not easy. All right.
So we see confirmation here from a radical revivalist, a prophet, and we see confirmation from a scientist.
Oh, and he said, I've come here to join.
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to say, yeah, I'm giving you confirmation. But I'm here to join, and God said, not a president, but provost. I'm to set up the academic affairs for a modular university.
So we have a chair for Howard, but we have Howard as well. We have a video, a short clip, where Howard tells from his side, how was it? How was that? So let's hear from Howard.
Today we'll probably cover a little more on the what
This is
shall
from
we then
1979.
teach? By covering various things about the curriculum development program that was started now some 5 years ago, and also the university, which had its conception probably about 3 years ago and has been under considerable development in the past year. I'd like to really start out by telling you a little about my own involvement, which will indicate something also of the history of this program, at least from my perspective. It was about 5 years ago that Campbell McAlpine, who you just heard, and Lauren Cunningham and Joy Dawson were speaking as a team in St. Louis. And my wife and I drove over there to spend this weekend with them in this conference. And one of the things that Lauren shared was about the group that had gotten together just shortly before he came to St. Louis to pray about a curriculum development program. And he was very excited about it, all the things that God had been revealing to this group. And I believe, Paul, you were involved in that at the time, weren't you? And as I listened to what Lauren had to share, I realized that God had been speaking to me about similar things, but from quite a different perspective, about the writing of modules and of the various types of intensive short courses, which we had also been presenting. And over dinner, we talked about these things. Then it was a few months later that I was sick for probably the first time that I had missed classes in about 25 years, sick in bed. And the Lord, I realized now, had His purpose for this, to give me just a time to meditate day and night. And as I was praying and meditating, I kept getting this recurring thought that we were going to be involved, my wife and I, in YWAM. And began to get more and more so, and I talked to my wife about it, and she said, I said, Gay, I think we're going to become involved with YWAM. I believe the Lord is telling us that. And she sort of confirmed that. And about 3 days later, I had a letter from Switzerland, from Lauren Cunningham, and he had said that he had been in prayer, and that the Lord had been speaking to him about asking me if I'd become involved with YWAM on either a part-time or full-time basis, specifically with relationship to educational programs and curriculum development. So that was the first confirmation. I later, a couple months later, was headed on a trip, and I say this for our Australian friends, on a trip to Australia for a lecture tour for a couple of weeks through Australia. And I met Lauren in California on the way over, and we prayed about this, and it seemed right. But on this long trip over, which was from Illinois now on to Honolulu, Sydney, and on to Adelaide for that first real stop, I kept asking the Lord for further confirmation. It seemed that the awesome prospect of developing curricula for all cultures, all nations, all grade levels, from preschool through college level and adult education, was just so awesome and so impossible that there was really time to do such a thing. And I arrived in Adelaide, I think it was about 28 hours or so after leaving Illinois. And I was really weary. And I just felt impelled to open my Bible when I arrived there in Adelaide. And the first thing that I saw was it was the Living Bible that I had at the time. It was the 96th chapter of Psalm, verse 3. Publish His glorious acts throughout the earth. Tell everyone about the amazing things He does. And that was the first confirmation that I should indeed get busy and work on curriculum materials. And then throughout that trip, there were several other confirmations, which I praised the Lord for. The curriculum development program then really started with the first educational seminar. It was around, 4.5 or 5, almost 5 years ago now, in Pomona, California. And I was there for that first week of that conference. Margaret McIntyre, who you'll be hearing from on Wednesday, was at that conference. Seeds were planted, and as we look back now in terms of materials, there weren't a great many materials generated during that time nor afterwards. However, the foundation was established and was being built upon. And each year we have held an educational seminar since that time. The goals of the curriculum development, many of you have read. I would like to just quickly enumerate some of them. was to originate and develop course and curriculum materials which are lessons, books, manuals, video, and radio programs and movies that are God-centered and place each subject in the context of in the beginning God, are filled with the excitement, joy, and awe of learning who God is, what He has done, and what He can do through us, are designed to contain scriptural truths interwoven with the academic subjects, or as Glenn Martin would prefer to say, reinterpret all of the academic subjects in terms of the Christian biblical perspective, are designed to discover and develop natural potential and abilities, spiritual aptitudes, and to help the student respond to God's call on his life with full commitment. Materials that are individualized and can be worked through by students in any cultural setting with assistance from parents or supervisor if a qualified teacher is not available, are international in flavor and viewpoint and can be used in Christian schools and public schools worldwide, can be used as reference materials by parents and teachers, are modular in that each module can stand alone or be linked together to form courses or curricula, and can be used at all levels of education from preschool through college and adult vocational programs. Indeed, this looks like one of those impossible jobs, impossible tasks that Paul has talked to us about on several occasions last week. However, all things are possible in God, and we do believe that He has given us the orders to march ahead with His curriculum development program. Now I want to switch gears again.
Wow. Can I pitch from you guys here? What are you guys hearing? What do you feel that the Lord is speaking? What are you hearing? What impressions or takeaways you can get so far from what we hear from our friends here and also from Howard? What are you hearing? Anyone? Is there a hand or yes?
I think I'm hearing that God's done a lot of work to bring the University of the Nations about from a lot of people all over the world. And just with Lauren sharing about the story, the timeline, that if we forget where we came from, if we forget just holding on to modular education and the spheres, and if we drift a little bit, we're going to lose what God worked really hard to get us to get a hold of. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, I just am humbled by the humble beginnings. Like, we all know the story and everything, but hearing it straight from you again, and the roaches in the bathtub, and, you know, showering outside and all these things, and then hearing Howard and the firm foundation. It's just, it cannot be shaken. What God has built, and how humble you have been to serve with your whole lives and to wait for confirmation after confirmation, and just hearing how God synchronized these confirmations, how solid, rock solid everything is.
Amen. It is rock solid. The confirmation.
What I hear is that when God is looking to revive or transform, He's looking for a people group or a person who will be that flexible, who will be that adaptable. Because if He's going to revive something that has gone way out of alignment, He's got to have some versatility, some people who are rugged, people who He's looking for the people that can hold it. So that question is just looming. Why pick YWAM? Why pick the Green Berets or the boots to do what seems the elite, that seem, higher education? And what qualifies the people that He would pick? Why did He deposit it inside YWAM, in a Youth with a Mission. And it was like he's looking for people who could hold it, because not everyone could hold this kind of revival. Not everyone would be willing to adapt and flow and come out of, Howard Momstad, out of academia to come and I want to join the mission. But so that it's just blowing my mind about what kind of people God uses when he's about to revive something or rewrite it or realign it or bring it back to what his original or his intentions were for that thing. And then when you said universal, Sammy and I both, university, no, I'm sorry, you said university. It just made us want to
Unity
hear,
and diversity.
yeah, in the seven
university.
spheres. It's everyone who dreams about any category, any sphere, they get to be well trained. They get more training. There's more to learn. There's more mentorship, discipleship, growth about whatever sphere it is. And that is meant to happen inside of a university. It was just really broadening. What you were saying this morning was broadening this concept of what is education, what is higher education, what does it mean to keep going and study in my field, my sphere, my calling, and what kind of people could hold that when God was about to redefine or realign what university.
Wonderful. Jeff?
I was hearing a lot of confirmation in what Howard is sharing about the curriculums, about just an encouragement that we are called to engage all of these spheres of society, and that it's not just, it is writing, as he gave it, but then when he listed off all these different other formats, I'm thinking about Adriano and how he's been capturing some of our archives out of video and different pieces. I'm thinking of how we've been working on documentaries, just finished a training video series in Australia. The time is now, whereas then he was ahead of the time. He was speaking in a futuristic sense, and now we actually have technology that can make that possible. Even just 10 years ago, that wasn't really sustainable. If you did a video, it would be out of date within a month or two, but now we can put a video on YouTube, we could translate it to 80, 100 languages, and we could keep that going and keep updating it. I can see where that is now. Now is the time for that. Very encouraging.
Joe, yes.
Just back to the question of why YWAM and why university. And when I reflect back at the school in '69 in Lausanne, Lauren was leading the school, and he was leading it as a visionary. Obviously also an educator, but a visionary. So I can remember on some of our Monday mornings, Lauren sharing from the book, Let Europe Hear, challenging us for the sleepy giant and for this country and for that country. And he had a vision that there would be YWAM bases throughout Europe, only a 4-hour drive away, one from the other.
That was selfish. I wanted to get a lunch and a supper.
And within a few years, that happened. And so to me, when I see, it's not education for education's sake. There's a vision, there's a goal, there's a purpose behind it. And so that's why I believe it's YWAM and university. Because if it's just university to do university, that's already happened. But God's calling us to go somewhere with it. There's the world to reach, there's the waves, there's all of that. And so to me, that gives meaning to the university. YWAM gives meaning to the university, and university gives an impetus to YWAM. The two go together. We're one. We're not two different entities. We're one entity. But it's it takes both expressions to fulfill God's heart.
I think one of the things that, on a very personal level, we've been looking at the Humanities and Science core course, and people want to change it, and but we need it's not relevant anymore. And then I listened to you, and I listened to what Uncle Howard said, and I was like, there are things that God has spoken that are foundational, and they are not obsolete. They are we can change things. We can the format changes, the packaging changes, but there are things in our coursework that are just solid. And so when I listened to that, inside of me, I was like, I've been fighting so hard for some of these courses of like, no, they are foundational. We cannot mess with what God spoke to begin with. And it was just, I don't know, something really personal for me, especially this particular core course, the humanities and science. And I'm reminded again that yes, we fight for these courses to remain embedded in our story. And there's a reason why, that we don't just throw out the old, thinking that it needs to be replaced by the new. But these that are anchored in, the stories and that we hear are anchored in, and we build from those places. And I think we need to remember that we are standing, I am standing on your shoulders.
Yes.
I cannot stand without you having stood before.
Yes.
And so I just want to say thank you for that.
Yes. Remembering is reconnecting. Remembering is remembering. Going back, reconnecting, remembering. It makes more sense in Portuguese than in English, I guess, but it's, it's getting, And I just see how all these elements, all these different elements coming together, creating a platform for, then it became later on Pacific and Asia Christian University, right?
Yeah. Well,
tell us a bit about it.
In the timeline, too, we started the university officially in 1978. And at that time, we had the people that God had gathered there. And of course, Howard became not only provost, but he was the dean of the College of Science and Technology, which, I mean, talk about a high level. He was there. And I can't say enough about Howard was so honored by the scientific community that he would speak up to 30,000 people in one arena that were all either scientists or they were CEOs and so on of major corporations. He always spoke, even to the last year, at Bell Lab every year on cutting edge science. That's 2003 when he died. And he was there every year. Now, he'd never talk about that among YWAMers because he knew it just didn't relate to us. And but he was being considered for the Nobel Peace Prize when, not the Peace Prize, but one of the scientific prizes, whenever he joined YWAM back in the 70s. So he turned his back on everything, and gave himself toward the future. And then as we started in 78, and at that time, the Lord spoke to us. He was going to have, we had a K-Pro computer, that one on campus. K-Pro computer, nobody knows what they are. And the Lord gave us this word. I want you to reveal Christ on world networks. So we used the word crown, Christ revealed on world network, crown. And that someday we were going to be, and we didn't know what the internet really was, but we knew that there's something he wanted us to do that was big. Well, one of the men that was there, again, God was bringing in high-level people. He brought in the #1 TV cook in the world for 10 years here. And most of you don't know this, but he's on over 100 nations on TV 5 days a week.
The Galloping Gourmet for people.
How many have heard of the
maybe
Galloping
saw
Gourmet?
Ancient TV.
Yeah, I see a lot of gray hair. Anyway.
Not really.
He was #1. And he and his wife had crashed and gave their heart to the Lord. You know, she was on drugs in rehab, and they were really rich and really famous. She was the producer, he was the star. And somebody said, hey, there's a place out there in Kona you can dry out and get right with God. And they came, and they were. I had a vision of 17 people, and we were going to launch what we call Crossroads DTS. Now, he's the one that named it Crossroads DTS, Graham Kerr. And so, but I had a vision of the 7. So I thought, well, we're only going to, 17. We're only going to have 17. All 17 of those showed up, including Howard Momstead. He took DTS too. And here they were, and we met somewhere around here. But anyway, in addition, a lot of others showed up. We had 70-some in our first class. And that was amazing to me. But we then, during that year, we began to pray about, and Joe was very much involved in this. I remember we went to a camp on the other side of the island, you know, and spent, I don't know how long over there, but a few days, I'm going to guess, and getting things sorted out about the colleges and so on, and trying to make it fit with the word of the Lord on the 7 spheres. And so that's what we were working on. And it was then in 1978, a man by the name of Neville, a first name, he was the lead engineer, the top guy for New Zealand Broadcasting Company. And he was here taking the same course. And he came to me and he said, you know, Lord's been speaking to me about this Christ Revealed on World Network. And he said, you're going to need a studio that is big. So I've drawn it out for you. And he showed me the place where God showed him it was to be. It was right up there. And there was sort of a bowl at that time before we did excavation. And he said, this is where it's to be. And if you'll look on the master plan, we put it there. And today, we just had it, you know, about 2 years ago. My son came to me and he said, you know, the mayor at that time, former mayor, 3 years ago, 4, whatever it was, and he said he wants me to take some land out by Waikoloa and build a movie studio. So I called my partner. His partner is named Grant, and he was the producer for the Spider-Man series. He's a Christian. And he said, this is what the mayor wants us to do. And Grant says, well, before you do that, you need to talk to the one who designed Universal Studios when it burned down. And she is an expert in multi-use of buildings. And you need to talk to her first. And she has a condo somewhere out there in Kona. And she likes deep sea diving, and her main house, of course, is here in Hollywood. But he says, here's her cell phone. So he called her and said, can we meet somewhere and we'll go out and see the property, which she did, came back, and she said, I don't think this is right, David, because in a studio, you only use it a few weeks a year, and then it sits there. He says, you need a multi-purpose auditorium, gymnasium, studio. You use it for many things. And she said, I've been looking at your property because I bought a condo. I'm in building A in Hualalai Village, and I've been looking at your property. You need to put it right there. She pointed to the same place that when Neville pointed it out, David was 7 years old. People are saying, you know, well, is this for David and so on? No, this is the word of the Lord. Whether David does or doesn't, this is the word of the Lord. And so she said it ought to go right there. And so here it is, a Hollywood person. But we then got in 1981 the Christian Magna Carta. The university had already started. But what I see that he was focusing with that, he was showing us that we have to keep our vision clear as a university. Now think of it, you know, evangelism, of course, is first there. Second is Bible. Third is fellowship. And if you think of DTS and leave out community, you don't have a DTS. I had a pastor of a mega church in Dallas just recently. He said, Lauren, I want a DTS in my church. They can stay in the homes and come, and we have the facility that you can teach them there. Just teach I said, that's not a DTS. It's just not. They have to live and learn together. And there's something about learning in community that is really powerful, because that's the way God did it. Look at the Word of God. And they always at least got together in their family. And so you see that community that is so important around the Word of God. So don't lose that concept, because we're going into now a kind of teaching where you're teaching, well, you're going to have to eventually teach accounting and math, therefore, and so on. But as you get into it, you show that God is a God of order. God is a God of numbers, too. And that's why he has a book called Numbers. And so when you see this, you'll understand we are not going away from spirituality. We're going toward it.
Amen.
And when we
Amen.
teach science,
Amen.
we are looking at what Paul says in Romans chapter 1. Look at nature, the God of the nature. You'll get to see him better and know him better by even looking at nature and his natural laws. As we get away from natural laws, like we're talking gender problems and so on, that is destruction, because it's not scientific, because it's not natural. It's not according to what nature. Every cell in your body tells you whether you're a man or woman. And so whenever we see this, we see it's other problems that we have to solve, not that. And so as we begin to see what God is saying, we have to really teach and get a curriculum. One other word, we started with the preschool curriculum. I think it's used now probably in 100 nations. It is a powerful curriculum. And we have not really fulfilled what God has said to Howard in this regard. Now, the curriculum now, instead of putting it in hard copy, you can put it, online, and it can go out there worldwide. But we really need to do that. And we don't teach psychology. We teach counseling. We teach biblical counseling. And I have a degree in psychology. But I said, no, you don't want that. And I'll tell you, psychotherapy, group psychotherapy, the woman who's teaching was most famous in America on this. You don't try to get people cured out of these problems that we talk now. And you actually learn to receive them and help society receive it. So it becomes normal. And so I go, whoa, this was graduate school. And so if you look at philosophy, I have a degree in that. This is University of Southern California. And it is not philosophy. It's the word of the Lord. And then, yes, you can have a reason and logic. I took a course in logic. But this is not what it's about. It's about understanding what God is saying and the spirit of truth, because the letter will kill you. And then the other one is theology. We don't teach theology. Theology is about understanding systems of theology that always bring separation. And there is no one system of theology. I have a degree in systems of theology. I'm telling you this that I've never told before. But I'm telling you this, I don't think I have. Anyway, because that's not what we do. We teach the Word of God. And let the Word live. And what is the Word about? It's about relationship. And it's first this relationship with God and then with everybody else. And the first commandment tells it all. Love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. You include yourself in that love. Love is to choose or will the highest good for God, others, and yourself. The highest that you know.
Wow. We have to go for a break, but you continue the conversation. So hold that thought right now, hold that thought, and you come back to it after the break, okay? So we'll be back here at 11 Okay. Thank you. Enjoy your break. See you in the field.
No problem. No. Yeah. Mine is getting content. Yes. And we have to get the words individually. But once I get show them the flow of history, they can put things in it.
How did we start? Where did we get this concept of warrior base, local base, living community?
Oh,
And
it's,
you could have chosen different pattern of life. Oh, it was cheap.
Yeah, no, you know, you were coming together because the school, we had to have a place to live.
Oh, because of the school
The
concept,
school
community
started
was
it. That's how it got started.
then multiplied.
Yeah.
I got it.
And then it was, we recognized right away.
That was my
I don't think I even realized how important